Well, hello again, boys and girls. Welcome to Mrs. Z's Reading Strategies. On yesterday, we read the story Authors Off to School by Mark Brown. Today, we would like to analyze story elements. We want to look at some things that happen in the story. And let's talk about story elements. Story elements, they are the pieces, the ingredients that when you put it together, make up a narrative story. Remember that identifying and remembering story elements will help you understand a story much better. It helps you to comprehend. So we're going to use our anchor chart as a guide as we analyze story elements of Authors Off to School. All right, boys and girls, when we analyze story elements, we look at the characters. We talk about and look at the setting, what happened in the story, such as the plot or the problem, and also the solution. How did they solve the problem? So let's go one by one, piece by piece. The first thing we would look at in analyzing story elements are the characters, because you want to know who's in the story or what's in the story. Now, characters can be people or they can be animals. So, who are the main characters in the story? Authors Off to School. The main characters, if you remember reading, are Author, DW, Mom. Now, I think those are the major characters. Most stories have major characters and some have minor characters, those that that weren't in the story as much. But Author, DW, and Mom, they are the main characters because you read about them or heard about them the most throughout the story. Now, within the story, we also read about Brain. These are his friends, Binky, Francine, Muffy, Buster, Mr. Ratburn, who was his teacher, and Author's dad. These are all the characters in the story. Remember that some of them were major characters, some of them were minor characters. All right, boys and girls, thumbs up if you understand the characters in the story. Now, what did the characters do in the story? Well, first of all, let's go back to the setting because the story had to take place somewhere. The setting, if we look at our anchor chart, is when or where the story takes place. When or where the story takes place. So the setting in this particular story, Authors Off to School, if you remember at the beginning, he was at home in bed. And then he finally got up and off to school because that's the name of the story. So the setting of the story is at home and at school. All right, now let's go down to the plot. The plot could be what's going on in the story or the problem in the story. We know that Authors Off to School and many things were happening throughout the classroom. But there was a problem. What was the problem in the story? Well, if you remember, Mr. Ratburn asked for everyone's homework. But what happened? Arthur remembered that he left his homework on the kitchen table. Have that ever happened to you? Can you make a connection to that? Text to self connection? Yes. How do you think Arthur felt knowing that everybody turned their homework in, but he didn't? He forgot his. Have that ever happened to you? Yeah, the story says that Arthur felt doomed. He felt like he couldn't be helped, but something happened. Someone came to the rescue and solved the problem. So let's talk about the solution. What happened at the end of the story? So let's think about it. We have a beginning, middle, and the end of the story. So usually the solution happens at the end of the story. DW delivered Arthur's homework. Do you remember that part? Let's go back to where DW walked in. It says, then he heard a knock at the door. DW was standing there with Dad. Homework delivery, she announced. Arthur rushed up to her. I'm still practicing, she whispered. Thanks, he whispered. So there we go. DW to the rescue. How do you think Arthur felt then? Wow, yes, he felt relieved. He was happy. And how do you think DW felt as a little sister coming to his rescue? I think she was proud. She wanted to help. She finally did something to help her big brother. Because remember, at the beginning of the story, I was thinking in my mind that, Arthur thinks she's a nuisance. Do you have any little brothers or sisters? Or are you a little brother or a little sister? Are you sometimes agitating your big brother or sister? Or do your little brother or sister agitate you? I think you can relate. Can you make a connection? Yeah, I know I can. So let's look at our checklist. Story elements writing checklist. Did we identify the character or the characters in the story? Yes, we identified major and minor characters. Did we identify the setting of the story? When and where the story take place? Yes, we said home or school. Did we identify the problem in the story? Yes, we did. And did we identify the solution? Yes, DW to the rescue. So boys and girls, that was very simple. Sometimes analyzing story elements helps you to comprehend what you are reading. Think about the characters in the story. Think about where the story is taking place. Is there a problem? Sometimes they're not a problem, but there's some things going on in the story, which is called the plot. And sometimes there's a solution. So if you identify these, you have analyzed all story elements. So boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed this little lesson, and there will be more to come.